Hello, hello. Welcome to week 4. We're going to be talking about what is reality in art this week. Before we jump into this week's learning activities, did want to let you know that those of you who did get your outline submitted on time, those are graded. I've given you feedback. Some of those need a lot of work. Some of them are off to an awesome start. I can see the direction you're going and, going to make for some really good papers. Make sure, again, that you read that feedback. If you have specific questions about areas in the paper, you guys let me know. I am here to help you, but I cannot help you if I don't know there's a problem. We're not sitting face to face in a classroom. You can't just raise your hand and say, hey, can you help me with this? You gotta, kind of take some initiative. Send me an email saying, hey, in Fry, I'm really having trouble with this whole concept of space, or I'm not quite sure what the intrinsic level is asking for. Don't wait until it's already submitted to say, oh, I wasn't really sure, what to do here. That's not what I want, because that's me trying to help you kind of after the fact, and we're getting you a little bit behind. So make sure you're always asking me in advance. So don't put your work off till the last second. And just send me a quick email and I will get back to you as soon as I can and trying to give you some direction and some help in those areas. But again, I cannot help you if I don't know that there's an issue or that you need help. So reach out to me. I'm your biggest asset. Okay, so those are graded. Those of you who have not got those turned in, please get those in as soon as possible so that I can get those graded so that you can then apply that feedback to your papers. So that way we're not, you're not getting to the paper if you didn't submit an outline and there's things that I could have said, hey, you were going in the wrong direction on your outline. Let's fix this for the paper. I can't do that if you don't get those outlines in to me. Okay, so this week in our reading, we're reading chapters 8 and chapters 9 in the visual culture textbook. So we're talking about photography and film. So this has a lot to do with this concept of reality. We always hear these terms, the camera never lies. Well, that's a crock because it does lie, and there's interpretation that's going on there, and we're going to learn about that through the reading this week. I also want you to view a couple of film clips. There's one on a photographer named Jeff Wall, and so you can just click here, right here on this link, and it will take you to that. And then there's also an interview with one of my personal favorite photographers, Cindy Sherman. And this is a whole episode of Art 21, but you don't need to watch the entire thing. Her interview starts about 15:30 and goes to about 34:50, but the whole episode is great. It's a really interesting group of artists, so if you want to watch the whole thing, absolutely go for it. And what I did is I took out the discussion board this week because I want you to focus on those papers, and because you got your self-portraits this week, I decided let's kind of pull back the reins a little bit. So you're welcome. One less assignment that's due this week. But I do want you to watch these clips. There is a question or two on the quiz. I know there's one question about Cindy Sherman. So I really do want you to watch these, and they're going to help you with your self-portraits as well. Especially the Cindy Sherman stuff, I think, will kind of help, just open up your imagination a little bit. And if you did, find something really interesting that you want to talk about or share, send me an email about it. Okay, so let's talk about those self-portraits. So you're going to use a camera to create 3 self-portraits. You may use anything from a film camera to a high-resolution camera phone, i.e. an iPhone, or if you're a Droid person, I don't really know what the cameras are like on those. Each image will be accompanied by 3 reflections. So reflections don't need to be long. About 2 to 4 sentences per question is appropriate. Don't just give me 1 sentence. Take a little time. When I say 2 to 4 sentences, I'm really telling you, write about 4 sentences, okay? So the first one is called honesty. So this idea is to be as honest as possible. Set up a simple background and photograph yourself as honestly as you can. You might choose to do the portrait in black and white. You might smile or have a straight face. Whatever you think is the most true representation of who you are. Don't get yourself all fancied up. Just make this a little bit raw. This is where a little bit of vulnerability comes in this first portrait. So we're going to talk about this whole idea of the camera, line here. So then I want you to answer these questions in your reflections. Remember, 2 to 4 sentences for each of these. What makes this portrait an honest representation of who you are? How did the portrait make you feel? Did it make you feel empowered? Did it make you feel vulnerable? Did it make you excited? Did it make you terrified? You know, what did it do for you? And three, how might this portrait be an example of this whole concept of the camera never lies? Or maybe it's not. Maybe you thought you were trying to be really honest, but realized that there was still interpretation going on. You were still showing us a side of you wanted us to see. Okay, so in the second portrait, this is an expressive portrait. So the idea of this portrait is to represent your unique personality. You might put on a costume or photograph yourself in your favorite place or during your favorite hobby. The point of this portrait is to creatively represent yourself. So where we had an honest representation, now you get to do something quite creative and kind of, play and have a lot of fun here. So I want you to answer these questions. What are you trying to express about yourself in this portrait? How does this one make you feel? And how might this portrait be an example of this whole reality versus imagination debate? So make sure you do your reading before you do this assignment. And number three, this is object. So the idea of this portrait is to represent your essence without actually being a picture of your face. You might photograph your hands during some activity or compile your favorite objects together as a still life. The point here is to create a more abstract representation of yourself that still captures, an idea of who you are. So again, what are you trying to express about yourself here? How did this make you feel? And how might this portrait be an example of the saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? Okay, so that's another very common photographic little turn of phrase that we use. And so for your submission instructions, this is done as a blog entry, so keep in mind that, your peers can see these images, so it's not like a journal where it's just you and me. It's not a discussion board where they, are required to comment on your images, although blog entries, I do encourage you to comment on your peers' posts and say, gosh, I really understood what you were communicating with this image, or can you clarify this one a little bit? What were you really trying to say? Participation is always a good thing. Art doesn't take place in a vacuum. It's about community after all. So it's important, since this is a blog entry, that you embed each of your portraits into your blog entry. So don't submit attachments. Just go ahead and use that attach or embed image tool that's on your text editor. But let's go ahead and remember what that looks like. I just had to go in and fix it, actually. It was in there as an assignment and not as a blog. So assignments don't allow you to embed images. So here we go. So you should, when you click it, it should look like this, create self-portrait. So the blog instructions will come up, which are the same instructions that we were just looking at. If you hit create a blog entry, and then you can title it however you want. You can use this little guy right here. Remember, edit or insert and edit images. So make sure you use that. That's how you're going to embed your 3 images into your blog post. And then you can just 1, 2, 3, and go ahead and answer those questions. Make sure you title each of those. So make sure you put, honest, expressive, object, etc. So, format it accordingly, and then you can just hit post entry and we will be good to go. So that is how, again, you embed those images. I go over this again because I still have students who don't do this. Okay, so again, make sure you embed those. Use your text editor for the written response. You don't need to include any attachments, and then I've included just an example of how it might be formatted. So portrait 2, expressive, here's the image, and then your 3 reflections. So please note, while I by no means expect you to be professional photographers, I expect you to put some time and thought into your portraits. Be sure images are clear unless intentionally blurred, such as this one of me above. And be creative. Take pride in your work here. This is a fun assignment. So don't just, kind of give me the minimal effort. I want to see you guys really explore your identity here. Okay, we should be pretty familiar with what's going on with the theory application paper by this point. So remember, this is due at the end of this week. If you did a thorough outline, you're pretty much good to go. This is going to be very easy for you to just kind of put it into paper format. Remember, you can use APA or MLA. MLA really is used more for humanities, but I know some of you are more familiar with APA formatting. So just pick one and stick to it. So I want to see some consistent formatting. However, when it comes to your images, please format them how I formatted them here and in that writing styles presentation. In some of your feedback, I kept going back to that. Go review the writing styles presentation, format your image citations this way. It just keeps it consistent throughout our class, and it's a very simple way of citing images. So whenever you have an image, you should have a citation directly under it. Or if you have, for example, figure 1, and then in your footnotes, you say figure 1 and give the citation, that is appropriate to do as well. So if you have any questions about the body of the paper, what it is that we're looking for, please make sure you ask me. Remember, I want a minimum of 3 different sources of research. One can be the textbook for each of your images. So there should be, 6 citations total, or it could be 5, I guess, if you're using the textbook on each of those. So citations within the body of the text, I want to see those where appropriate, so give me those in-text citations. So if you're paraphrasing, if you're quoting, using any research from any source, including the textbook, be sure that you do an in-text citation, and you should be able to go back to those MLA or APA style guides that I've included in the general learning activities, and they should tell you how to do those citations. Remember, no first person narrative voice, so no I, me, my. I want this to be a formal academic paper, okay? I give you those journals, those discussion boards, those blogs where you get to, really spout off your opinions. This is where I want that formal academic tone, okay? And be sure to proofread. I cannot emphasize this enough. If your paper seems sloppy, people are going to, they're going to start to think that the context is sloppy, that it's not well researched, that it's not well assembled. So make sure that you proofread. If you feel that your writing needs further assistance, please send your paper through the tutoring online. So if you go up here in your whole control tab that's on the left, this button here, tutoring online, this is what you would use, and you can submit your paper that way. And someone from the academic center, they will go ahead, the tutoring center, and they will look over it. They'll give you some suggestions for formatting. They don't usually give a lot of feedback on content because it's not their areas of expertise. But if you do submit your paper this way, I'm willing to grant extensions because sometimes they take several days to get back to you, and you have to then have time to apply those changes. So just let me know if that's something that you choose to do. And of course, you've got your quiz. As usual, 4 or 5 questions. I think the quizzes are relatively general. I've tried to make them that way. There's no written responses in any of those since you got so much writing going on. So again, keep me in the loop if you're struggling with something. If there's just something crazy going on in your life and you need an extra day, let me know. I would rather you do that and we can work out an extension than you submitting something that is just not ready and not done, not complete. Because it's kind of a waste of my time to start grading something that you clearly haven't put that much effort into. So I'd rather you, take an extra day or 2 to get it in right. I want you to learn in my class. Okay, that's what we got going on this week. Sorry, this announcement was a little longer. Have a great week, everyone. Let me know if you have any questions.